Okay, I'm going to start our introduction to two-point perspective. For those of you who have covered one-point perspective, you'll remember that in order to start the drawing, we started off with a horizontal line across the page. Placement can vary, but we're going to do it across the center of the page here to be a horizon line. That is the border between where the sky is and where the ground is. The horizon line, which is why they get the term horizontal, goes from side to side. And in one-point perspective, we did a single dot, usually was in the middle, but it certainly could have been placed in any number of places. But it was a dot that we would connect shapes to. In two-point perspective, as the title implies, there's actually two dots we're going to work with. And I'm going to put one over on one side named V1 and another one on the other side called V2. You'll notice that they are on the horizon line. And actually, it's advantageous in professional drawings to actually have them off the paper. But I'm going to keep them on the paper so it's easier to demonstrate what we're doing. Once the horizon line is put in, which is step one, and step two is putting in the two vanishing points, V1, V2, we now start the actual construction of these cubes. And what we start off with in step three is a height line. A height line will tell us exactly how tall the box is, and where we put it will tell us where the location of the box is on our page. For the first one, to keep things simple, I'm going to draw the height line in the center of the page, and I'm going to cross a horizon line. We don't have to press hard at all. And for the sake of teaching this, I'm going to give it a name. I'll name the top of the line A and the bottom of the line B. And that's how tall my box is going to be, and obviously I want it in the center of the page for today. So with that being step three, step four now is connecting my height line with orthogonal lines to V1 and V2. Orthogonal lines, as a quick review, are the lines that go towards V1 and V2 that give things the appearance of getting smaller as they go farther back in space. So to demonstrate, I'm going to take the top of my height line A to the vanishing point V1. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom of the height line B. B is going to go towards V1 as well. As you can kind of guess, you can see that my height line is now going to go to V2. So A is going to go to V2. So there's an orthogonal line going from A to V2. And then I'll have to draw another orthogonal line going from B to V2 as well. And you get something that kind of looks like a giant kite. Now, what I have done in actuality is I've given you basically two walls. One really long wall going to V1 and one really long wall going to V2. To demonstrate the illusion a little bit, I'm going to draw a little stick figure man here. And it looks like he's standing at the corner of a fence that's in two sections that join here. So in theory, he could walk this way and get smaller in appearance as he moves along, or he could go off to the right, and as he goes further and further along, he gets smaller and smaller. So that might help with the illusion a little bit. So you should be able to see how these are two long walls. I'm going to get rid of these little guys here. They were helpful to give the illustration, but I no longer need them. And you'll see that this long wall goes on forever and ever. So that's really not that practical. We rarely see that if ever. So we're going to have to make an ending for this wall someplace. And where I put that, that's going to be fairly arbitrary. That's going to be up to me. So I'm going to say maybe I want my wall to end here. It'll now bring me to the next step, which is doing the cutoffs. In this case, I stopped here, and I'm going to make my cutoff go up and down, touching the top orthogonal line to the bottom one. And I've now cut my wall off so it's that long. I will repeat the same thing for this other wall here. I could stop at the same distance, or I could stop it at a different distance. I'm going to stop it a little bit shorter here. I'll put my next cutoff there, and I'll go up and down. Why? Because my height line goes up and down. And there's my cutoff there. You should start being able to see the box occurring, or in this case, my rectangular prism. And I'll erase some of the the orthogonal lines that I no longer need. They were helpful at one point, but I no longer need them. I can also get rid of the horizon line that cuts through my box. And again, it was helpful at one point, but the box is going to be assumed to be opaque or solid, so I can't see through it. And there's a construction of a box. I'm going to repeat the process. It's going to change slightly. The process is the same, but the appearance is going to change for one good reason. And that reason is that instead of putting the line on the horizon line, crossing it, I'm going to put it below the horizon line, significantly below the horizon line. So I'm going to go over here. Height can change, but I'm going to make it about this length. And I'm going to call it height line CD. So again, I still have my same horizon line, still have my two vanishing points, and now I have my new height line. I'm going to connect C to V1. So the height line is going to get connected to V1, as I'll do here, relatively lightly. I got to make sure I press hard enough for you guys to see on camera. D is also going to go to V1, and I'll repeat the process using V2. C goes to V2, and then D goes to V2 as well. If you can keep in mind that illusion I made of the two walls, you should see a wall going this way, going on forever and ever, and a wall going off in this direction to the right, going on forever and ever. So the next step that I did with the next box, after my orthogonal lines are in, I drew cutoffs. So on the second attempt at a box, my orthogonal lines are in, I'm going to put cutoffs in. I might put one over here. Again, where I put them is relatively arbitrary. Then the other side, I'll put another one in, and I might put it in, say, over here. On the previous box, after I put my cutoffs in, I was complete. I just had erasing to do. Here, after my cutoffs in, it doesn't quite look like a box yet. It looks kind of like a menu standing up on a restaurant table. What's missing, as you might be able to see, is the top of this box. Because it's below the horizon line, I should be able to see the top being revealed. So this is how we find out the top. We actually use the cutoffs here. I'm going to use this cutoff on this side, go to the top of it, and I'm going to connect it to one of the vanishing points. It doesn't make sense to go to V1 because I already have a line drawn to V1. So therefore, I must end up going to V2. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect that cutoff to V2, like so. When I go to the other cutoff, if I'm trying to figure out which way to go, if I go towards V2, oh, that's a line that I already have. So it must be that I have to go to V1. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to draw this to V1. You should be able to start seeing this box appear now, where I can see two sides and a top. To help the illusion be a little bit more clear, I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to get rid of the excess lines, these orthogonal lines that were helpful at one point, but now they're no longer needed. Because I'm going to be doing a ton of erasing in a perspective drawing, I'm going to endeavor to press relatively light. Even if I draw absolutely perfectly, there's always going to be erasing to be done, so it really suits all of you to press lightly. So it's easier to get rid of lines that are no longer needed after they've served their purpose. So now we have box AB that crosses the horizon line, and I only see two sides. And then I have box CD, which is set lower, and that goes to V1 and V2, that I can see three sides for. As you might imagine, there might be some occasions where I might have a box above the horizon line or floating. Sometimes in a surreal drawing, I could draw boxes that are floating, like something in outer space. So I'm going to do that here. This new height line is going to be EF. And you can see I kind of was working in autopilot. I started connecting F to V1, which means E will also go to V1. My orthogonal lines. And you'll notice that I was lined up correctly. I just didn't draw the line all the way through. I didn't really need to do that. As long as I'm lined up, I should be okay. E is also going to go to V2. And F is also going to go to V2 as well. Again, as long as I'm lined up, I don't really need to draw the whole thing. So, height line. Then I go to V1 and V2 and put in my orthogonal lines. And now I have to decide the cutoffs. Again, how far my cutoffs go is up to me. So I'm going to draw one here. And I'll draw one, say over here. So now that the height line is drawn in, my height line is connected to V1, V2, and I put my cutoffs. I look at for what's missing. And in this case, instead of the top missing, and I put that in on this box, here, the bottom is missing. Again, it looks like that, a menu, but floating in the sky. So I'll use the cutoffs. If I use this cutoff and the bottom of this cutoff, It's already connected to V2. It doesn't help me anymore. So I'll need to go to V1. And I'm not sure how long to make that line, but I'm going to make it longer than I'm going to think I'm going to need. So now I need to use the other cutoff as well. I'm going to go to the bottom of this cutoff. Instead of just drawing a line in any which direction, I can guarantee it's going to look silly. I need to make sure I'm using the vanishing point. It's already connected to V1, so I'll connect it to V2. And you should be able to see the box at that point. And in true form, I will now work on getting rid of some of these lines that I no longer need, that were in fact helpful, but I no longer need them. As you can see my box on my rectangular prism. And I'm going to make this just a little darker for you guys to see. So, as in one point, there was an expectation to show overlap, and I'm going to show some of that right now. I'm going to go over to our first box, AB. And this time, I'm going to draw a height line, but I'm going to draw it as if it's coming off of the top of this building, or box. Well, it will become a building. And I will call that, to continue the trend with the alphabet, I'll call this GH. You know that we connect the height line to the vanishing point. So G is going to go towards V1, a short distance. As long as I'm lined up, I don't have to draw the way. Now, H would go to V1, but the reality is that it already is going to V1 because, again, it's on top of my building, and the line from the previous building or box is already lined up, so I don't have to worry about that. So now I'm going to start seeing if I can apply it to V2. G, in fact, does go to V2. Again, I'm lined up, so I don't have to draw all the way necessarily. And then the next section, H would go to V2, but again, it's covered up by the previous building. So now that I have my height line, I've connected all the orthogonal lines that I could. I go right to my cutoffs. I want one cutoff to be over here. Again, I'm going to go up and down. And maybe I want the other cutoff to be somewhere over here. And this time, I'm not going to put it way over here. It causes a different set of problems that can be solved. But I'm going to keep it on top of the previous building. And I'm going to go up and down here. And it should look like a box is either on top of the previous building or further away but behind the previous building. And that's one example of overlapping. I'll do one more example for this tutorial. I might draw another box. This time the horizon line is going to be crossed over here. So that's my new height line. I'll just draw this a little darker so you guys can see it. I'm going to cross my horizon line and I'm going to call it IJ. And I create the same issues by connecting the height line to the vanishing points. I goes to V1, and I'll bump and stop into the building in front of it. J goes to V1 too. You'll notice I'm cutting through this building, so I'll just draw up to that building and stop. I will also now connect IJ to V2, and there's nothing in the way. So again, I can draw uninterrupted. I won't draw the whole thing, but as long as I'm lined up, that's what matters. I'll put my cutoffs in. I could put a cutoff on this side, say over here. I could put a cutoff on this side if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I'm just going to leave it the way it is so I get the illusion that this box is overlapping this box. So I will cut right forward to erasing the orthogonal lines I don't need. And again, I'm going with the assumption that my box is solid or opaque, so I shouldn't see the horizon line going through it. And that's that. So this is basically the structure for a 2-point, and it gets more elaborate, but if you can get the systematic construction of these rectangular prisms and cubes, that's the primary thing. And it's all based off how these orthogonal lines are accurate. You have to make sure that your height lines accurately aim towards V1 or V2. Any diagonal will not do. They have to be specifically lined up with V1 and V2, your vanishing points. And that should be enough for today, and then I'll catch you in the next tutorial.